The mud was pulling at my boots like it wanted to swallow me whole, and gravel was dying on my shoulder. 600 pounds of alien soldier, 4 legs, 2 of them useless now, and a chest wound that made a sound like wet paper every time he breathed. The acid sleet was coming down sideways, burning through my jacket at the collar, and somewhere behind us, the enemy drones were sweeping the wreckage of what used to be our forward position. Red light, screaming sensors on my exoframe, 4 minutes and 30 seconds on the extraction clock. That was when Commander Voss cut in on the comm. "Morrow, drop the Soth. He will not survive transit regardless. This is a direct order." I did not stop walking. "My name is Owen Morrow. I am a sergeant in the Galactic Coalition Expeditionary Force, and I have been fighting alongside aliens for 14 months. I have seen things that would make a person question the nature of the universe. I have bled on 6 moons and 2 planets that do not have human names yet. I know what a direct order sounds like. I understood exactly what Voss was telling me. I just was not going to do it. "Acknowledged," I said, and kept moving. Gravel made a sound. Low, resonant, somewhere in the frequency that you feel in your molars rather than hear with your ears. I had been around Soth long enough to know what it meant. He was telling me to put him down. He was telling me it was fine. "Shut up," I told him. "Save the air." The extraction vessel was a quarter-mile ahead, sitting in a clearing that used to be a refinery before the enemy leveled it 2 days ago. The ramp was down. I could see it from here, a pale orange rectangle in the gray murk. Lieutenant Dara Cole was on the ramp, her sniper rifle still raised, scanning back the way I had come. She was Valouri, avian, built for speed and precision, not loyalty. At least, that is what the tactical profiles said. She had not moved from that ramp in 3 minutes. Behind me, Specialist Fen Orek was laying down, suppressing fire from a crumbled wall. Fen was Drathian, insectoid, 6 limbs, and a mind like a calculator that never slept. He was the one who had told me, very calmly and with complete mathematical confidence, that there was a 63% chance I would not make it to the ramp if I carried gravel. He had shown me the formula. I had looked at it. I had nodded like I was considering it. Then I had picked gravel up. The exoframe groaned at the knee joint. I felt the servos stuttering, working too hard, and beneath them my real knee was doing something it was not supposed to do, sending signals up my leg that I filed away for later. There was no room for pain right now. Pain was a message, and I had already read it. It said, "This is going to cost you." I said back, "I know," and I kept walking. 2 drones appeared over the eastern rubble line. "Drones east," I said into the comm. Very calm. The way you get calm when there is nothing left to be afraid of, because you have already committed. Fen Orek dropped his position and came running, not away from the drones, toward them, laying fire, drawing their targeting systems, pulling them off me with the kind of reckless intervention that would have gotten him reprimanded in 3 different Drathian academies. He did not even look at me as he passed. He just ran into the problem so I could run away from it. I had never seen a Drathian do that before. They were not built for it. Their doctrine was efficiency, calculation, acceptable loss. They did not throw themselves at problems. They solved problems. I think Fen was solving a different kind of problem than the one he had been trained for. 3 minutes, Voss said. "Morrow, I am beginning pre-departure sequence." "Understood," I said. The mud got worse near the refinery perimeter. Old chemical runoff, pooled under a thin crust that cracked under my boots and let me sink to the shin on every 3rd step. Gravel's weight pushed me deeper. My left boot filled with something cold and sharp-smelling, and I thought absurdly about how I was going to have to throw this pair out when we got back. When, not if. I chose when, and I kept it. Gravel shifted. He was trying to redistribute his weight, trying to put less of himself on me, using what little strength he had left to make himself easier to carry. A 600-pound warrior, 400 years of Soth combat lineage, raised in a culture that considered death in battle the only honorable exit, and he was trying to help me help him, quietly, without being asked. Something about that hit harder than anything else had that day. "I've got you," I told him. "Stop moving." He stopped. The ramp was close now, 150 yards. I could hear the vessel's engines cycling up. I could see Dara Cole still standing at the edge, and I could see that she had wedged the stock of her rifle into the ramp mechanism. The hydraulics were straining against it. She was holding the ramp open with a rifle and the weight of a decision she had not been authorized to make. Voss would have her report for that. I made a mental note to be in the room when he tried. 2 minutes, Voss said. His voice had changed, not softer, but there was something in it now, a frequency I could not quite identify. I hit the base of the ramp at 100 yards and I was running. Not fast, nothing about this was fast, but it was movement, and it was forward, and that was enough. My exoframe's left knee servo gave out with a sound like a gunshot. The whole left side of the frame locked, and I lurched. Nearly went down, caught myself on the ramp's edge with one hand and held. 600 pounds on one shoulder, one good leg, one dead exoframe joint, and 20 yards of incline between me and the interior. I climbed. Every step was a separate argument with gravity, and gravity made good points. Gravity said, "You are done. You have nothing left. The math does not work." I said back, "The math was never the point," and I took another step. Dara Cole grabbed my arm. Not Gravel's, mine. She did not say anything. She just pulled, and between her strength and my refusal, we got up the ramp and through the door, and the mechanism finally gave and the ramp closed behind us with a sound like the universe sealing shut. I went down on one knee, the good one. The other one did not have opinions anymore. Gravel slid from my shoulder carefully, guided by Dara and two of the ship's medics who were already there, already working. He was breathing. That wet paper sound, but rhythmic, consistent. The medics were talking fast in 3 languages, and I caught enough to understand that his odds were real odds now, not zeros. I sat on the floor of the vessel and looked at my hands. The engine roar built beneath us. We lifted. Below, the refinery clearing shrank away into the acid murk, and the drones that had been chasing Fen circled the empty ground where I used to be. Fen came through the emergency hatch at the rear, moving low, his 6 limbs folding efficiently as he sealed it behind him. He was smoking slightly at one shoulder. He sat down across from me without a word, and began running diagnostics on his armor, with the focused calm of a being who did not process events emotionally. Then he looked up. "You should not have made it," he said. "I know. The probability was... Fen." He stopped. "I know," I said again. "Thank you." He looked at me for a long moment. A Drathian's face is not built for human expression, but something moved in the set of his eyes, something I had not seen there before. He gave a single, precise nod. Then he went back to his diagnostics. Commander Voss was standing at the forward bulkhead when I made it to my feet and walked to him. My knee was loud about its objections, but I walked anyway. He was a Drathian elder, older than Fen by something measured in decades, with a command record that read like a military history textbook. He had given orders in 100 engagements. He had never had one ignored the way I had ignored his. He looked at me for a long time. "You disobeyed a direct extraction order," he said. "Yes," I said. "You endangered yourself and the vessel." "I did." "You influenced 2 other unit members to also deviate from protocol." I glanced at Dara and Fen. They made their own choices. Voss was quiet. Behind him, through the viewport, the moon they called Vethkara was receding, brown and gray and burning in places where the battle had left its marks. "There will be a report," he said. "Yes, sir. It will note your insubordination." "I expect it will." He looked past me, to where Gravel was being worked on by the medics. The Soth's breathing was evening out. One of the medics gave a short, relieved sound. Voss said nothing for a moment. Then, quietly, more to himself than to me, "I have never seen a Drathian specialist voluntarily draw fire to provide cover for a retreat. In 30 years, I have never seen it." "Fen is good at his job," I said. "That was not his job." "No," I agreed, "it wasn't." Voss looked at me again. Something in his expression shifted, very slightly, in a direction I could not fully read. He turned and walked forward without another word. The report would say what it said. We both knew it. It was 2 hours before Gravel was stable enough to be moved, and another hour before he was awake. The medics had done the kind of work that made you grateful to be living in a century with the medicine we had. His shattered leg was braced and sealed. The chest wound was closed. He was going to be in recovery for weeks, but he was going to be in recovery. I was sitting on a bench near the medbay when he turned his head and found me. Gravel's species communicated in layered sounds, most of them below what humans could hear clearly. But they also had a secondary language, something older, used for ritual. I had learned a small amount of it in the past year, enough to understand what he said next. He called my name. Not Owen, not Morrow. He said it in Soth, which did not have the same sounds, but the shape of it was close enough. He said it like it meant something more than a name. He said it like it was a category. Then he said a word that I had only read about in the cultural briefings, the one I had filed under interesting and never expected to encounter personally. He named me Pack. In Soth culture, this is not something that can be undone. You do not name someone Pack as a gesture or a thank you. It is biological, ritual, permanent. It means something specific and enormous. that you have claimed a being as kin, that your people are their people, that the debt runs in both directions for as long as either of you is breathing. Dara Cole was leaning against the wall nearby. She made a short sound, something between a breath and a word. I looked at her. That is significant, she said. I know. Our briefing materials said Soth do not do that with other species. They don't, I said, usually. She was quiet for a moment, looking at Gravel. Then she said, very carefully, like she was working out the words, when I put my rifle in the mechanism, I had not decided to do it. I was watching you, and then I was doing it, and I did not fully understand the gap between those two moments. Yeah, I said. That does not happen to me. I know. She nodded slowly. I am going to think about that. Take your time, I said. We've got the flight back. The after-action reports were filed 3 days later. I read mine, which noted the insubordination with crisp, neutral language and recommended a formal review. I signed it. Then I read the others, because Voss had given the full unit access to every account, which was unusual, and which I suspected was a message of some kind. Fenorek's report was 6 pages of precise tactical analysis, noting every movement, every probability, every outcome metric. At the end, in the section marked Personal Assessment, he had written one paragraph that was different from everything else in tone and texture. He wrote that he had diverted to draw drone fire not because the tactical model supported it, but because he had seen a human carry something that the model said could not be carried, and he had found himself wanting to make the model wrong. He wrote that he was not certain what to do with that impulse, but that he intended to keep it. Dara Cole's report was shorter. She had written, near the end, that she had held the extraction ramp open in violation of departure protocol because leaving felt wrong, and she had no more precise language for it than that. She wrote that she was continuing to analyze the decision and would file supplemental notes when she had better words. I read that twice. Voss's report was the longest. It was thorough, detailed, and clinically accurate about every failure of protocol. At the very end, in a section he had apparently added after the others were filed, he wrote something that I did not expect from him. He wrote that he had spent 30 years calculating acceptable losses, and that he had always believed this was the necessary work of command. He wrote that watching a human carry what should not have been carried had not changed his belief in calculation, but it had raised a question he did not yet know how to answer, which was whether acceptable loss and necessary loss were always the same thing, and whether he had been treating them as synonymous for too long. He did not answer the question in the report. He just left it there, open, at the end of 30 years of closed certainty. I sat with that for a while. My knee was in a brace. The exoframe was in the repair bay, its left joint replaced by the ship's tech, a young human from Edinburgh named Cal Reeves who had grown up fixing agricultural equipment and applied the same patient philosophy to combat gear, that you treat what you can, and you do not write off what still has use in it. He had handed the repaired frame back to me, with the quiet satisfaction of someone who found meaning in making broken things whole again. I thought about that too. There is something people say about humans, said by the other species mostly, said in briefings and academic papers and casual conversation when they think we are not listening. They say we are emotionally compromised. They say we form attachments that cloud judgment. They say that the thing which makes us grieve and hope and refuse to leave people behind is a flaw, a soft tissue weakness, an evolutionary leftover from a time when small bands of primates needed each other to survive the cold. They are not entirely wrong about the mechanism. But here is what I know from 14 months of fighting alongside beings who calculate everything. The calculation always produces an answer. The answer is always technically correct. And sometimes the technically correct answer is the one that, if you follow it long enough, leaves you in a universe where you have optimized everything and held on to nothing. I have seen what that looks like. I have seen the math. I have seen the efficiency. I have read the reports of battles won cleanly, with acceptable losses accepted, and I have seen the faces of the ones who survived those battles and what the clean winning cost them, in ways that do not appear in the after-action documentation. I will take the defect. Gravel was awake for a few hours in the evening, and we sat together for a while without much language between us, because we did not need it. He made sounds and I listened, and occasionally I said something and he was still, which in Soth means receiving. Outside the viewport, the dark between stars was very complete and very silent, and in the medbay it was warm and the lights were low and the engines made a constant low hum that was the sound of all of us going somewhere together. He called me Pack again before he slept, not as a ritual this time, just as a fact. I sat there for a while after he was asleep, in the quiet, and I thought about the ramp, and the mud, and the weight, and Fen running into the drones with no calculation attached, and Dara with her rifle in the mechanism and no precise language for why. I thought about what Voss had left open at the end of his report. And I thought about Cal Reeves in the repair bay, carefully and patiently restoring function to something that had pushed past its limits and broken, not because he had been ordered to, but because he looked at it and saw that it still had use in it, and that was reason enough. We are strange humans, I know that. I have known it since the first briefing where a Drathian analyst laid out our psychological profile with the careful detachment of someone describing a mildly dangerous weather pattern. Emotionally compromised, statistically irrational, prone to attachment, like it is a vulnerability, like it is something to be corrected. But I have carried 600 pounds through acid sleet on a dead exoframe knee, and I have felt what it means to not let go, and I have watched what not letting go does to the beings around you who have spent their whole lives calculating when to release. It changes something. I do not know yet what to call it, but it is real, and it is in Fenorek's report, and it is in Dara Cole's, and it is in the open question at the end of Voss's 30 years of certainty. We left Vethkara with everyone we came with. That is all I wanted. That is what I said no for. That is the whole of it, and it is enough, and I would do it again without changing a single step. Even the ones that hurt. Especially those.